really started to increase from supply chain issues. I know that everybody talks about supply chain issues, but this is really something that's really impacted our operations, both water and sewer. Water and sewer, we use a fair amount of chemicals for treatment of water. Um, Primarily, some of the big ones within the water, drinking water treatment, is sodium hypochlorite for disinfection of the water. We also use polyaluminum chloride, also known as PAC. Both of those chemicals over the past 2 years have seen great increases within it. So just to go, so from FY22 actuals within the water was 480,000. Budgeted for this coming year, 814,000. So a substantial increase in just a 2 year period. As far as sewer, sodium hypochlorite is one of the large chemicals that we use for disinfection, as well as sodium bisulfate. Those chemicals went FY22 actuals $386,000 to FY24 budgeted 844,000. Substantial increases that are just not something that we can control. We go out to bid every year for those chemicals based on the quantities. We group water and sewer together to try to even get a better rate because it's a bigger quantity for the ones that we can share together. Compared to the state bid list, typically what we get is cheaper than what's put out there on the state bid list through chemical suppliers. I feel that the suppliers we get do the best that they can, but it's been a great increase. You look at just the overall chemicals on the past couple of years. Sodium hypochlorite was one that was talked about. You think about 2 years ago, people were having trouble getting that chemical to chlorinate their pools. Drinking water and wastewater took priority, but again, that whole you saw it in the retail market when we're buying it on the bulk market. There was definitely an issue with getting it, and whenever demand is there, the price goes up. So that's what drives that. Oxygen, another chemical that we use in the wastewater plant. You've heard about that over the past year. Well, I've heard about it. Medical facilities and everything having issues getting that. CO2 that we use within water treatment. That's another one that over the years, over the past year, you hear about medical facilities in different places having issues getting those. We're lucky because we're prioritized. We haven't had any issues with getting the chemicals besides fluoride is the only one that we have had issues with getting that chemical over the past couple of years. But all the other chemicals we have not had any interruptions.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's just a massive amount of funds to cover that, but it makes plenty of sense. The fact that how difficult it is to get and how expensive it is. So the second part is the salaries, and that, to me, after reviewing the budget, seems to be the biggest increase. So just some thoughts on that from you.
Yeah, so again, within the salaries, you'll notice both within water and sewer, there has been increases. Over the past 8 months or so, we've been working with the union to negotiate a increase in wages so that our water department and sewer department employees are somewhere comparable to other communities. For the past couple of years, I've been talking about the staffing issues that we've had at the treatment plant, as well as our water distribution and other areas within our divisions. That's because of the wage difference and people leaving the city to go somewhere where they're getting paid more money, whether it be another municipality, a private company, or either other departments within the city as well too. So this side letter is currently in front of the union for their vote. And the budget that is proposed, the FY24 budget, along with these rates that are there, include those increases. So those increases are already built within that budget. That's why within the salary line items there are increases.
Okay. I'll yield for now. Thank you.
Any further discussions?
Boy.
Councilor Dan.
Oh boy. I'm pretty certain people are gonna know in advance where I'm gonna go. We had a big discussion this year about opera funding, and offsetting your rates, which could have happened. We had between Bristol County and city opera funds, but we had approximately $86 million. Federal dollars that Fall River has begged for years. If we had put 30 million into water and sewer infrastructure, we still had 56 million to spread around, which I think was more than enough. There was a discussion at a meeting that it was only going to save $11 a year, $2 a quarter for ratepayers. Mr. Ferlin at that same meeting, and it's on tape, I went back and watched every meeting over and over again, was 50 to 65 cents per CCF at 53 CCFs a year, which is far more than $11 a year. Do these people deserve a raise? They absolutely do deserve a raise. Could these rates have been offset? They certainly could have. Could we have done more for our workers, our ratepayers, and our taxpayers? Absolutely, we could have. And that's where I have a problem. And basically, so I really struggle with that. I hate that we don't do more, didn't do more, and just take the easy way out all the time. I do have a question on, sorry, I didn't mean to bang the mic. And I'm not directing that at you. I think you realize it's just like my colleague in C8, I get very passionate when it comes to the water department. On page 6, section 1, subsection 1, subsection 2, do these all apply to sewer, or do some of them apply to water? Somehow, I don't know why I'm not being clear. I know you said the 606 was sewer. What's the 271 to 289? Do you want me to send
Yeah.
this here? Yeah, a matter of fact, I have a copy right here of my own. Oh, all right.
I need it back because it has my agenda on it. I see Mr. Aguirre in the audience. He's going to be upset if I don't call him down.
Yeah, so which subsection specifically?
Let's see. Well, can we go through all
Yeah,
of them
so
and
if
just
you-
explain what exactly? Because this is what's in ordinance, correct?
Yeah, so this is
Correctly.
the changes that would be put within the ordinance book.
Mhm.
So this goes through and starts with section 1, talks about the fee schedule, which includes the user fees for wastewater collection to be amended as followed. Subsection 1, by striking out the $5.75 and inserting $6.06. So that's the increase of 1 CCF for sewer usage.
Sure. Mhm.
Yep. Subsection 2, striking out paragraph A of subsection 2 and of section $5.75 and inserting the $6.06. So again, that's in relation to the sewer, so CCFs. Subsection 2, again, striking out the $2.71 and placing in there $2.89. So that's what is that section is part of the significant industrial user. So any user that uses over 25,000 gallons per year, 25,000 gallons per year, they get that's their sewer rate if they are considered a significant industrial user as being part of our pre-treatment program, self-monitoring, and treating their own waste for any contaminants prior to coming into us.
So the increase is 18 cents?
Yes, so it's based on the percentage of what the residential sewer user rate went up. Theirs went up by the same percentage. Then you have subsection 4, which is houses that do not have water meters. So if you have a house that is not supplied by water, which is a typical, we bill the sewer based off the water usage that goes through the meter. So if you don't have a meter, so we can't read it, this is the number of people that live in that household. Starts with one person all the way down, increasing by one person per a line item, and that's a yearly charge that's applied to those houses. As you go into section 2, That goes in to discuss the stormwater fee. And the stormwater fee, again, striking out the $188 per year, in placing $200 per year, striking out the $47 per quarter per ERU, and putting in place of it $50 per quarter per ERU.
It's unfortunate that we're still needing to increase the water runoff. I mean, that was something, I don't know, I feel like there just should be a cap on that at some point, but, okay, so all right, and the 377 is strictly water.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. With that, I yield.
Thank you, Council Liberty.
So I agree with pretty much everything my colleague to my right said, which is why I let her go first. I have the same opinion on the ARPA funds. I believe the city should have used more ARPA funds towards your department to work on the projects, and we wouldn't have to continue to do this, or at least not at this rate. Unfortunately, we only have control over the Bristol County ARPA funds. We don't have control over the other ARPA funds, and the council has been very vocal to the administration. At least some of the council has been vocal to the administration on how we would like to see that used. There's nothing we can do about it. So once again, our backs are up against the wall. Last year, I voted no on this just solely on principle. It's unfortunate that, you know, your employees are going through collective bargaining, but it's connected to this.
Well, you know, again, and that's the tough thing with an enterprise fund. You know, an enterprise fund is just like you know, you cannot spend more than what you take in.
Correct. But it's the same with the regular budget too. We were
Yeah.
asking Councilor Kadim before the meeting. I mean, we have to approve the other collective bargaining. We have to make sure we can afford it, and the city raises taxes to be able to do that, or brings in revenues or whatnot. So this is bringing in revenue. I do have one question. When we talked about Stafford Square, a couple of years ago, you had said, I want to say we would need 45 million to be able to do that project. And we'll never have 45 million, I don't think, again in our lifetime. So we could have done that project with ARPA funds. Those storm basins, I've just been educated. Those drain into live sewer. They're not a gray matter system,
No.
gray water system.
So there's multiple different ones within that catchment area.
Mhm.
So there is separated drainage through a portion of that. As you get into the Stafford Square intersection, there's three separated drains that come down there. One's the Whitefield drain, one's the Brookside drain, I believe it was called. So that one kind of comes down Pleasant Street, crosses the bank parking lot, goes into the parking lot of the shopping plaza. The Whitefield comes from where the mill is, across the street, actually goes underneath part of the mill, comes down. That's a large culvert. And then there's one that comes down Quarry Street, which actually gets the drain from the old quarry behind small school that used to be there. So there is separated drainage in part of that area. As you move up Pleasant Street, within that catchment area, there is combined stormwater catch basins up in that area. So, you know, part of the problem is all the water comes down to that one low point from as far back as Locust Street and Easton Avenue. All comes down to that one point, gets there, and has a tough time getting out of that area. So yeah, there is both combined.
So this combined. So is the water that's flooding that's mixed with live sewer?
No, so that's the water that comes up to the surface essentially is the storm water from all the drains. The sewer travels down Pleasant Street. There's two different routes for the sewer to take. So you don't have manhole covers popping there or anything like that. I don't know if you remember the Globe intersection. Used to have that manhole cover would pop 4 or 5 feet in the air, and that was combined sewer and stormwater. you don't have that at that intersection.
So it's not combined sewer.
No, so not to say that it's totally clean, because all the stormwater does have some contaminants that run off with it naturally, but it's not a combined sewer. It's not a sanitary sewer overflow. That would be considered.
Okay, and have you been, and I think this is in Council Dion's committee, has there been any talk with the city engineer about any fixes to that area where it's flooding those homes, the new homes?
So I've visited the area many times. Our engineers have, so you're talking about Tiffany Drive and Calissa Street. Those, we have looked at those areas again. That's part of the Whitefield drain that actually goes and backs all the way up there. Under high intensity rainstorms, it backs up as far as in front of Columbus Park over on Bedford Street. The water that pools there is because of the Whitefield drain. So again, that's, once we're able to get the water out of Stafford Square in the future, that water would be able to come in and come out of that. For those independent homes right there right now, it's kind of all related to Stafford
For
Square.
when we're able to get rid of the water in Stafford Square, how would we do that with the $45 million?
Yeah, again, so we pared it down. That was a full 3-phased approach. We've pared it down to a 2-phase approach. We've applied for 2 grants for $32 million. One was through hazard mitigation through MEMA. That one did not go forward, was not chosen to go forward. But that's because we also applied for the BRIC grant, which is a national grant program through FEMA, and that is still in evaluation with FEMA on that grant.
When will we know?
They said that we would be told whether we're going to be picked to advance, I think probably within the next 2 months or so. And then once you get through the initial round, then you'll be able to, then they still evaluate after that. FEMA sometimes isn't always the quickest on picking stuff up.
All right. So I think several of us counselors share the same frustration. I don't know how else we can express to the administration that we'd like to see more ARPA funds go to water and sewer projects. If we don't say yes to this, then what happens besides the salaries?
Yeah, so again, the negotiated side letter with the union is tied to these rate increases to be able to support the budget for FY24. There would need to be substantial cuts across both divisions. The tough thing is, with the chemical increase, the labor increase, those types of things, particularly those on things that ARPA or other types of funding sources potentially could pay for. But naturally, the more debt that we can get off of the books by being able to use other funding sources is something that's good. And we've done that very well over the past couple of years. In the city of, in the mayor's speech, State of the City, he mentioned $23 million that we've secured between ARPA and other funds. There's probably another 10 to 15 million that have been secured in principal reduction against loans and things like that. So we are always looking for those alternate funding sources throughout all of the divisions. But there would be substantial cuts. Again, cuts naturally with the way that our budgets are constructed. You're talking about 92% fixed costs within the sewer. We have our chemical costs, we have our electrical costs, we have our debt service. So do we not pay back our debt service? And then it impacts our financial ratings. Can't turn off the lights. We got to keep taking what's given to us. Can't cut on chemicals because then we're not going to meet our permits. So we're very limited in what can be cut from our budget. You're talking capital, water capital I cut this year because, planning to use free cash for some things. So what can be cut, you end up talking about labor, you talk about contractual services, other than that, there's really not much within our budget. You know, your 92% fixed cost within your sewer, and your 84% fixed cost within your water. So where do you cut? Is the
Sorry, what was the
question.
water number? 84?
84%.
Thank you.
Yeah, so where do you cut? You know, that's the tough thing.
I yield.
Any other discussion? Council Dan?
If that funding were to come through, what is the dollar amount attached to it?
For Stafford Square,
Mhm.
32 million was what we applied for.
You applied for 32, so there'd be 13 million that you'd still require?
Well, so we put together a project that took us through phase 1, phase 2, and integrated the needed parts of phase 3 to mitigate the flooding. Some of the third phase reached far up within the watershed, to be able to better the water quality up there and stuff like that. So to alleviate the immediate flooding within Stafford Square, we pared the project down so that we could have a viable project to put forward through FEMA and MEMA.
So in the end result, how much more money above the 32 million would you need?
So to do the full would be another 13 million.
13 million.
Yeah.
Well, I think I can honestly say that if we could have a commitment of 13 million to add to the FEMA 32 million, assuming that comes through, I could vote yes for this. Because at least we'd be helping the ratepayers, we'd still be offsetting, we'd be solving a huge problem that we're never, ever, as you said, in our lifetime, ever going to be able to tackle. And that's a shame that you got the money sitting right there in the bank and not using it for the right purposes. And it drives me crazy. With that, I yield.
Councilor Reposo?
With the increases, Mr. Ferlin, what are you expecting the impact on the income is going to be? So if you raise it from 575 to 606, what are you going to essentially collect in revenue additionally?
So the to the average household,
Yeah.
So to the average household, sewer would be a $21.25 increase
Per quarter or per year?
per year, and water would be $10.60 per year to the average household,
And the average is based on?
based on 53 CCF water usage per year. So that works out to
Oh,
61
sorry.
cents per week
Sorry, I rounded.
to the average household.
I'm going to ask a question because I guess maybe I don't understand the historical significance of it, but the stormwater fee, right?
Yes.
So you're proposing an increase of $3 from 47 to 50. What exactly does the stormwater fee cover?
So the stormwater fee covers, so again, sewer enterprise fund is an enterprise fund. It has a couple of different revenue streams.
Mhm.
The two major revenue streams are the sewer user fee and then also the stormwater fee. Every year we go through, do an analysis to look at whether it be debt that's coming on board, our staff's time, or anything related to CSO work or independent stormwater work. So that's what the stormwater fee goes to pay for, is the breakdown of the costs within the sewer enterprise fund that are related to CSO or separated storm sewer.
So really the stormwater fee doesn't really impact chemical costs per se.
Well, it does, because you still have the CSO portion of that.
Mhm.
So your CSO still goes through your treatment plan. So during a wet weather storm, we can go from 23 million gallons per day at our wastewater treatment facility up to 110 million gallons a day. So your chemical usage at that point goes significantly higher.
Okay. You mentioned the projects and the debt. So how does that factor into your determination of the increase of rates? Because I know, again, we're talking about the ARPA money, and some ARPA money has been allocated to some projects.
Yep.
So really, I guess my question comes, how much, try to formulate this question right, how much weight does the debt and the projects add to the need for the increase of the rates?
So within this year, our debt service did not increase a lot, to tell you the truth. This year, our debt service was pretty close to level funded. We had some newer short-term debt that came on board. We're going to have some newer long-term debt that's coming on board towards the end of 24 and into 25. Some long-term debt for the ongoing upgrades down at the wastewater treatment plant right now. But the debt service this year was pretty flat line between water and sewer. We calculate that by going through. We get debt schedules for all the loans that we have. We work with the treasurer's office and our financial advisors to make sure that we have all the long-term debt schedules correct, all the short-term debt schedules, and those are the amounts that you see in there. So if you actually look at the independent debt service within the budgets, you'll see that that actual long-term debt, principal and interest went down, and some short-term went up in both water and sewer.
Okay.
That was because of some older loans, 20 or 30-year-old loans coming off the books.
Okay. And then last question, as I went through the budget, in the water budget, there's the line item of other personnel costs.
Yep.
Can you we do this in the general budget too, but define other personnel costs to me?
Yeah, so if you're looking at the water budget.
Yeah.
So within the water budget, there's the three separate divisions. You have treatment and resources, you have maintenance and distribution, and you also have the administration. They each have their own salary lines. Each one of those is carried with the other personnel cost, and that's part of the side letter agreement increase.
Okay. All right. I yield. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Ferland, just a couple questions for you. So along the lines that Mr. Raposo was asking about the debt and I guess the increases that were there for water, what was the original rate? So it's going to $3.77. What's this current year's?
$3.57.
57, so 20 cents.
Correct.
So I know you said the debts, because of the retiring debt, is level funded. But when we do, what are we on phase
So
20?
22
22
is the lead service removal project we're doing this year.
So that's usually just under 4 million,
Usually just under 5.
under 5.
Yeah,
So
4 to 5 million.
projects like that alone, what would you have to increase? So how many cents to cover just that replacement? So I guess let me take a step back. So, and I ask this every year, and I
Yeah.
know it changes. So, 1 cent increase for sewer and water generates how much in revenue?
So we're roughly, so sewer, you're roughly about 25,000, and water, you're roughly about 31,000.
Okay, for every penny.
Correct. And that's pretty consistent over the years.
So to cover so if there was no, I mean, there's always going to be retiring debt, but if you get to a point where the debt's not retiring enough to offset the increase, you would have to raise a significant amount of money in terms of at least the rate to cover just the lead.
The debt increase. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, again, so if you're talking a $4 or $5 million project, divide that by the 20 years, plus your interest, and that's roughly, so 25,000 per whatever it works out to be.
Right. Okay. Then my other question is, how much retained earnings or free cash is being used in each of the budgets?
So within the sewer division, we're using $1,447,528 of retained earnings. That's a reduction from last year's use of retained earnings that we had within the budget. Last year was roughly about 1.7 million. The water department budget, we're using $296,571 of retained earning, and that's level funded from last year's.
Okay.
If you remember last year too, we did do a reduction within the water free cash from the prior fiscal year.
And what's the balances on those?
So sewer, we are using 100% of retained earnings.
So you got 0 left.
Yep. So within the sewer, though, we did have a late receipt that came in with the accounting team. it was not able to be certified within the free cash from last year. It was a substantial rebate from our contractor, over $300,000. So that will roll out in this coming year's free cash, but that would have been in this free cash. And then water, we will be left with $103,544 in free cash.
Okay. So I will say I can appreciate the rates, the concern about the rates going up. But as we had conversations, whether it's in the enterprise fund or in the general fund, you will have to either raise revenue or taxes to be able to cover whatever costs come here. What I will say is, and I've said this before, prior administrations have offset the rate increases significantly with the use of one-time funds, which to me creates structural deficits. We still have $1.4 million in the suicide, which again is a structural deficit. God forbid something happens, we have zero funding to be able to go to the to the retained earnings to be able to offset some of the costs. And I know some of our facilities are in need of repair. There could be major issues that take place at the sewer treatment plant. Water department, similar situation, only $103,000. So when we start looking at the increases, the increase probably should be much more significant, and I know we're trying to minimize that. I will echo what my colleagues have said. I'm a little disappointed we didn't do more in terms of trying to offset the rates with the use of opera money, or even taking some of the other capital items off the table, so that we're not adding to the debt service. That being said, we do have to take action on this, and I think when you look at a budget, especially on the suicide, 90% being fixed costs, it's very challenging to try to. And I know it's not a scare tactic, and some folks may take it that way, but when you have 92% of fixed costs, I challenge folks to try to reduce any type of budget with a 92% fixed costs. Might be a little bit easier on the water, but that's still at 84%. So, I mean, just round that up to 85, you got 15% that's left to be reduced. So a good majority of that's going to come from staffing. You start reducing staffing, then we've got federal mandates that are going to come down. So there is a balance. That being said, there is action that needs to be taken. Madam Clerk, can you remind me, how long do we have?
It's 45 days to act on the budget, yes.
On the budget, which was submitted
March 3rd.
March 3rd, 14th. The 14th, okay. Oh, so it was, yeah, right, the council meeting, okay. So we've got 45 days, so I don't know what the will of the committee is, whether there's a recommendation out to the full council. Obviously, the full council is still going to need to debate the budget. Again, it's almost a chicken and egg scenario here. What do we deal with first? Is it the rates, or is it the budget? So it may make sense to just make a recommendation one way or another, get it out to full council. And if that recommendation is upheld during budget negotiations, then, this committee has done what it's needed to do. But if it needs to come back, then we can meet within the 45-day period. Councilor Liberty.
When did you receive it? We received it.
March 14th.
So yeah, I submitted to the actual, the mayor submitted it on the 3rd, and then the first council meeting was on the 14th.
So what is the actual start date though? Are they gonna say it was the 3rd because it was submitted on the 3rd, even though we didn't get it till the 14th?
Yeah, I know.
What are the semantics here?
Correct. Again, according to everything that I have, my budgets need to be submitted by to the council 120 days prior to the start of the fiscal year, which is March 3rd. So I don't know whether it would be the 3rd or the 14th. That would start the clock for the 45 days.
So to be on the safe side, March 3rd is your day.
Yeah.
So
I would err on the side of caution.
Yeah,
Didn't they have done that, not getting bitten again?
No, I want to make sure everybody's aware of.
Yeah. Point of clarification, it received the city clerk March 3rd.
Okay.
23.
is there a motion?
This go on tomorrow night?
If it's recommended for first reading.
It doesn't wait till the 11th, right?
No.
adopt, motion
Motion
to
to
reject. Motion to adopt made by Councilor Liberty. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Reposo. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Counselor Dion?
No.
Counselor Liberty?
Yes.
Counselor Reposo?
Yes.
Counselor Washington? Chair Kadim?
Yes. Thank you, folks.
Thank you very much.
Item number 7 is a resolution to discuss the noise complaint regarding Fall River coin-operated car washes located at 1225 Dwelly Street. This was tabled on January 31st, 2023. I believe we have the police department here. We got some folks, I think some residents that want to speak on behalf of the item before us. So I'll have those individuals come down now.
Motion lift from the table?
Motion to lift the table was made by Councilor Reposo. Is there a second? Second by Councilor Lilliberty. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Motion carries. There was a letter that we did receive from the police chief regarding the number of complaints, the responses to those complaints. We did have those conversations back on January with Corporation Counsel, Assistant Corporation Counsel, I should say. And Assistant Corporation Counsel did have another meeting to attend, so I told him he wasn't needed for this meeting. So if we do feel like we need additional discussion with Corporation Counsel, then we can just table this for another meeting to have him come down. But I think the plan, the last time the committee met, was to really refer this back to the chief and see what he would say in terms of the enforcement of the bylaw. I'm sorry, the ordinance, the noise ordinance that we have. So is there any discussion? No discussion. So if you can just state your name for the record.
These are letters from two people that live on third and second floor. They'll be here because they want to start a side and then-
Do you want to? Yeah, can you give us your address for the record?
It's 1227 Diwali, that's the house I'm complaining, but I live on 1215 Diwali. And I am the landlord and my wife's the landlord. But, we've been complaining about this for quite a bit of time. And it's aggravating because I lost already a couple of people that were really good to me and living in the house. And in 2 years, I lost 3 tenants. And I asked them, is it because of the rent? Is it because of me? No, it's always comes out to be the car wash. As it is, the street is so very busy as it is. So, I need help on this car wash. I know I'm not here to shut it down. I'm here to quiet the car wash because it bothers me. I get up 1 o'clock in the morning. That's where I go to work. I get up. And sometimes I call the cops. No, I don't want to call them anymore because I'm already aggravated. And then I heard the last meeting I was here, it's just like, it's all bad news. It's like I'm the bad guy. And I got one of the tenants, she's over there too. And she's on first floor. And she's realizing, when I rent the house to the tenants, I always tell them, car wash makes noise. Okay, that's the first thing I say. Okay, but how can you explain noise? It varies. It's not 24 hours, but it's any time. I had somebody that lived on the second floor. She had a baby girl, 18 months. She told me before she moved out in November. She told me, because I come from a big family, I know how it is when you have kids. And she told me that, she got home tired. She's a guidance counselor. She was in the school department. She told me she was tired. It was 8 o'clock. She wanted to get the kid, I don't know where. The kid was very agitated, very, one of those days. And she did everything she could. She fed him. She could quiet down. So she tried to put him to sleep. So she did. About half an hour later, somebody comes with loud music and just woke up the kid. How does that mother feel after working a hard day like everybody else does? You know what I mean? I just get, and another thing is the officers, they come by my street at 1 o'clock. Sometimes like when I get out 1:30, I get out of the house. And I see officers coming with a cop car. They got the lights. They're going to Sunset Hill. I'm sure that's where they're going. And they got the lights on, but they don't have no sirens. There's no noise. I see ambulances doing the same thing. Why is this car wash bothering me at night when I'm sleeping? How can this be? I just can't understand how can it be. That's what and I've been a landlord there for 30 years. I've been living in that house for 30 years. I'm already to the point that I gotta move out. Or I gotta sell out to rest. I got plenty of time to rest when I die. You know what I mean? But I need to rest when I work a hard day. I work at a bakery. Sometimes the heat can get to you. You know, you come home, it's not you're tired, it's the heat. And then you take a nice shower. I fall asleep at a heartbeat. But then I live about 100 feet away because I live in the next house right over. And I can, it wakes me up. I'm not going to get up at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock and keep calling an officer. Hey, they got better things to do. So I just want this noise to go away. I know it's not going to go away 100%. And it's not just the music, it's the swearing. And then sometimes they got kids. It seems like they take the car, they take everything out of the car and vacuum their car, and the kids run around. And the kids yelling. Hey, I know how it feels to have kids. No brothers. I didn't have kids, but I have a lot of brothers. I come from a big family. I just need hope on this thing. I'm losing tenants because of this car wash. And it's making my property look like, it's like, you put a bad apple in the neighborhood. One apple ruins the whole neighborhood. Is that what Forever's is that into? It seems like the whole world's into that. So we're just following along. You go by my property. I think I take care of it enough. I just want quiet. That's all I ask from you. I don't want to trouble the cops. I don't need that because they got better things to do. They do have better things to do. But I don't think they don't live there, so they can't tell me it's not making noise. I never seen an officer go by there when it's making noise. Yeah, they go by there when it's not making noise. They pass by. But I never see it. I just don't get it. I need help.
So I think we appreciate the quality of life issue. We hear what you're saying. I think everybody on the committee and the council wants to try to address this. Councilor LeBeau, you have hands up.
Do we have an update from the police department on, I wasn't at the last meeting, but we did speak. That one? Not the report. I'm sorry. Oh, wait, that's the one I just read. Never mind.
The chief's letter is up to date, right?
Yep. Okay. So I guess my question is, can we put hours on the car wash?
So when the assistant corporation counsel was down, we had discussed potentially doing a license for car washes. He recommended that's probably not something that would be upheld in court. But there's nothing stopping us from putting hours on car washes, requiring licenses. Whether it gets challenged and it's upheld in court is a different story. So typically, and we had talked about this last time, when you're in a town, any bylaw that you put forth is reviewed by the Attorney General's office. So the Attorney General will review it to make sure that it will, for as much as possible, will be sustained in court, right? So here, with cities, because you have in-house corporation counsels, the AG's office doesn't require review of ordinances. So you never know where you're going to stand in terms of a challenge.
So the only way to put hours on it would be to have them have to have a license. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Or we would create an ordinance that would establish license and hours for car wash operations.
Without the license.
Without the license. But if you're going to impact a business, I'm sure there's going to be some challenges associated with it.
Right.
So,
but if the business is impacting the neighborhood,
quality of life, right?
Right.
Yeah,
So
no, I recognize that.
it's both. All right, I yield.
Councilor Campbell.
At our last meeting, they agreed to shut the vacuum off that was closest to the house. Have they done that?
Ma'am, I honestly, I'm so fed up with the place that I don't even know anything anymore. It's like I just said, everything keeps going around and around. And it's during the day too, if I have a picnic in my backyard, and if I have a family, right away there's a cop, a neighbor calls, there's a cop right there. We call an officer to come there. When there's noise, they show up later because they got more important things to do. I understand because there's shortage. There's a shortage of everything. You know what I mean? And the thing is, it's like I said, it seems like I'm lying. You know, it's like if you call
Well-
somebody, it's like everybody's going around and around. It's
Yeah.
like a big moon. You know, it just keeps going around. You know, I just listen. I dealt with it years ago because like I said, I lived there for 30 years. Okay, that's how long I've been married. Okay, and it's yeah, it wasn't happening before.
So how long do you think the actual real noise problem has been going on at
For
this point?
a few years, I just didn't know the routine.
Yep.
I didn't want to be a complainer, but now it's costing me money because
Mhm.
my tenants are moving,
Mhm.
and it's good people, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And I have the rents decent enough. I think I do, you know. And I got one of the tenants there. She can explain. She's been living there for about I think 2 years, and
Mhm.
she's an older person. And you know, I care about my tenants.
Mhm.
I'm not what they call a scumlord, you know.
Yep.
You know, it's some people just look for to make the big bucks. No, I want them to live there and I want them to stay there. You know, you know, it killed my heart when a girl moved on and she had a baby girl. I wanted to see that little girl grow because I don't have a kid myself. I had a big family, but I don't have a kid myself. And she was there like for 7 years.
Well,
You know, I had one lady 20 something years. That was my father-in-law's time. But you know, the only way you can avoid this car wash is by being deaf.
So I guess my recommendation, and I don't mean to cut you off, but
no, it's okay.
last time we were here, Assistant Corporation Counsel suggested that the noise ordinance was in place, that we had to establish it. You know, that was the mindset and the logic behind it was let's enforce the noise ordinance. Let's see where it gets us. So now that we're in coming upon April, May, that's when that car wash is going to start getting busy. Let's give it a couple of months. Let's see what the police department does with the noise ordinance. If it doesn't resolve, then I would say that we come back and then we start having some real discussions about putting specific times associated with car washes. I will say, and I had this conversation with John today. I used to live next to a car wash, and right at 10 o'clock when it's quiet, you know, once they start going in and you got those, you know, those dryers that are kicking on and things like that, it is very, very loud. You can hear it. During the day, it's still noisy, but there's so much noise going on, it kind of gets muffled. But when it's silent, you know, 10, 11 o'clock at night, you can hear it. So I can imagine, you know, what the noise is over there with the vacuums and the car wash itself. So, you know, we had this conversation with Cumberland Farms. That was one of the issues that I brought up with Cumberland Farms, is that they wanted a car wash right behind a residential neighborhood. And that's why I opposed Cumberland Farms going there. Because they have the car wash. I was okay with the gas station, things of that nature, but you know, the car washes have significant impact and quality of life issues for residents. So it's just unfortunate it's on the side of a residential property.
Yeah,
So-
and the house is so close to even that vacuum. You know what I mean? And then the thing is, the vacuum makes noise, and then they crank the music, and it's not no good music. It's not no John Travolta, you know. It's this music that you can even understand. They talk about their own mothers and fathers and swearing. It's just swearing, you know. I already seen needles on the side of my fence. It hasn't happened for a while, but I did already see it, and I pointed to the guy and I said, "Look, you know." But it's, you know, I'm afraid to talk to the person because then he can say I'm doing something to cause problems.
Yeah, you're still on the floor.
Another thought, because I know this came up with one of the lots where the school buses were kept and them starting the cars in the morning. And they talked about soundproofing, putting a wall, a buffer between where the buses were and where the houses were. Is that something you could look at in terms of this problem?
Yes. So, I mean, I think you would probably run more of a risk of a challenge because now you're telling a business what they have to do in terms of the property that they're currently operating in, right? So it's not like they were going in and then you have like a site review that's going on and you want to have some buffers, whether it's vegetation or whatever the case may be. I think the best possible solution that we have is putting hours of operation on the business that would probably be able to be justified and argued in court, that would probably have a fighting chance. I think if you start putting all these other demands on the business, I think you're going to run into a problem where a court is not going to accept that. You can come on down. You got to come on down. I just need your name and address for the record.
I'm all sorry.
Oh,
I just
yeah.
want to, I appreciate for your
All
time.
right, thank you, John.
and I hope that you guys can help me out. That's all I ask. Thank you very much.
She has them.
Sorry about the glasses, I can't see my eyes. My name is Vanessa Aruda, and I live at 1227 Dwelly Street on the first floor. And I know you said everything's changed, but everything does change. So when that business went in, we didn't have the type of stereo systems that we have now. So the amount of noise that it creates, and it really is less than 5 feet from my bedroom window. I'm not the healthiest person around, and even now, the reason my eyes today is because it's stress and inclusions. So as I get stressed out, not that that's my only thing, but when you have people playing this music like 5 feet from your bedroom window, and sometimes it's louder in the house than it is, because when you're outside, you're hearing the vacuum going. I'm literally screaming at these people. Then they notice me there to say, can you turn? And the guy that runs it, the guy that was here, he hears it. He's out there with them talking smack, using his F words, all this stuff, right there outside my bedroom window. So he's not any part of the help. He's part of the problem. And so people kind of do whatever. And the reason when I ask them why they go to that in particular vacuum and not the one across the way, it's because the house casts shade. So, I mean, it is a little bit of ridiculous that they use our house as a protector and everything, but yet and still, I have to deal physically, mentally, emotionally with all the garbage they put out and still pay my rent. And they have a lovely property there, and I enjoy the neighborhood, but we have other businesses there, the banks there, the gas stations there. The gas station has their bit of problems with accidents or whatever, but it's not like that car wash and that music and how they just hang there. And the signs that they put about loud music are like this big. We need like something on the side of our house if they're going to use our house about. I mean, it's just ridiculous, and he doesn't enforce it, and nobody seems to care.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, it's driving me absolutely nuts.
So we'll try to address it, but we're very limited on how much we can do. So we're not going to be able to eliminate the noise. We'll be able to eliminate during certain
I
hours.
definitely like
right?
her
So-
idea about a soundproofing thing, though, because really, truly, because there was probably no ordinance when they built that vacuum. And if you stood in my house, like people that come down and they'll hear it and they'll go, "Oh my God, what's that?" I'm like, "That's outside. That's it." And it's just unbelievable. And I know they told me, "Oh yeah, there's a car wash," but anyone, because I feel like I'm a reasonable, intelligent woman. The amount of noise that it generates, I would have never thought I grew up on Broadway.
Now, that's the vacuum closest to your house.
Yes.
And that's the one that they agreed to shut off at night.
Yes, and they
And they
never have.
haven't.
No.
Oh.
You have people, I have pictures of people there at midnight, 1:00 in the morning, like whatever. It's a total free for all. And I call the police and they come out, but they come out, it's like those people are gone hours ago. I mean, it's impossible to kind of track, but even what I'm saying is when there's music and there's activity going on, the gentleman that's the manager there, he does absolutely nothing. He laughs at it. To him, it's a big joke. He just is like in your face. Nothing's gonna ever be resolved. It's he's smug. You just want to choke him. Well, you're frustrated from everything else, so that's not too far fetched. Until it's a nightmare. Sorry. I invite each and every one of you to come over for dinner and sit there. Alexis.
All right, thank you. So Councilor Reposo and Councilor Liberty.
Yeah, if I could ask the officer here, can you define what is a business check?
Okay, so
No, I'm sorry. Should I go now?
Yeah, you're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
So a business check is essentially the officer will go to that location and just make sure that everything seems and appears to be in normal function, that there's nothing out of the ordinary. Typically, we do business checks for banks. We'll walk in and we'll ask the clerks if, how everything's going, if there's anything suspicious. In that event, given that it's a car wash, I would imagine that the officer would just drive through or get out, make sure that there isn't rubbish everywhere and that things seem to be in normal order.
Okay. So the business checks are not necessarily a result of a phone call.
No,
or a complaint?
nope,
So
it's,
just
um,
normal.
It's completely up to the route officer when they have availability during their shift. They could do it multiple times. They could do it one time, beginning of their shift, or like I said, multiple times throughout their shift. But yes, it's completely sporadic.
You mean, I personally don't understand why you wash your car at 2 o'clock in the morning anyway. Personally, that's just me. I do support this idea that we look at a possible hours of operation, but I guess the question becomes, how many businesses will we affect by doing that? And I think that's what we have to consider as well, because we have to let a business operate and make money and make a living and all that. But I also understand the living situation we have. But at the core of it, I don't wash my car at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I don't know why anybody else would, to be honest. So I would support this idea of some sort of hour regulation. I think we need to do some research to find out how many car washes are in operation in the city, how many of them are managed actively versus a 24-hour come as you go type of establishment. Because I think those can differ. I can think of one car wash in the city that has set hours, and after that, the day is done. The day is done. There's nothing else happening. Versus other ones that are 24 hours, go through, do your thing, and leave, and that could be at any time of the day or night. I can understand a little bit more the afternoon situation because it's in the middle of the day, but I can't fathom why you do it at the middle of the morning. So I would support an idea of looking at first researching what the impact would be to do that, and then secondly, putting something in motion. And if it will be challenged, let it be challenged. I guess it's one of those things. If we don't do it, we'll never know. So
When I come home from one of my 2 o'clock in the morning Board of Selectmen meetings, I'll pull up into your driveway, start washing my car.
I'll get the hose out for you.
Thanks. Councilor Liberty.
On the Cumberland Farms, didn't we amend the time for the car wash?
I believe we did, yeah.
We did, right?
Mhm.
So, and I understand what you're saying about seeing about the other car washes, but some of them aren't right next to a residential house. If this was a residential house that was making noise in the middle of the night, and there was police calls going to it, and I know I'm speaking to the property owner, that he said they don't even call most of the time because they don't want to be a pain. But if that was a residential house and they were making noise in the middle of the night, they'd be a nuisance property and they'd be fined. So why are we able to do that with this?
Well, I'm sure we can, but to your point, I don't think there's enough calls that are being made, right?
Because
So-
they don't want to, and I
No,
and I get
no, I
that,
recognize
right?
that. So that's why I guess my recommendation would be that hearing that we want to try to, I guess, put limits on the hours of operation that.
I mean, they do have a right to run a business, but they don't have a right to make
Yep.
noise past our noise ordinance. I mean, when that auto shop on South Main, when the residents were complaining about a smell, I don't know how many times do we meet on them? And we just had the fish storage unit on Peckham Street. The neighbors were complaining. I mean, I know that it's a city and it's businesses and residential, but
So what I would recommend is that we table this and then we come back, let's just say mid-May, which would give the police department at least a couple of months to just enforce the noise ordinance, and then we can ask the clerk if she wouldn't mind just figuring out how many car washes we have and if we can get hours of operations for those.
so I guess my thought on that is, I mean, if a car wash isn't next to a residential building, I
You
don't think,
gotta be consistent though, right? So then you're gonna run into a situation. If it's gonna get challenged, then it's gonna get challenged even more if you're not consistent across the board.
May I point of clarification? I think one of the example I used, that car wash is in a smack dab in the residential area. However, it has set hours, so it's never an issue.
And I don't know what the ordinance is. The ordinance usually has a set time, and maybe where hours is so vague. But
What?
usually it's, like 6 o'clock in the morning till,
a noise ordinance?
10 or
7 to 10.
is it 7 to 10?
The noise ordinance, yeah.
7 to
Yeah.
10?
Can I add something?
Yeah.
One of the things that might be helpful to know is that the apartment building we're talking about is zoned A2, which is apartment district. It is immediately adjacent to 1225 Dwelly, which is BL, local business district. If you wanted to do something that wouldn't be considered an unlawful taking, it wouldn't get overturned, you might limit the limitation to anything that is immediately adjacent to a residential or apartment district. So if you were just to say car washes have to close at a certain time, I think that becomes essentially a taking, right? Becomes
you're singling out car washes. But if you were to say businesses that, generate, that have outdoor business after a certain time that are immediately adjacent to a residential or apartment district, that's actually tailored enough where you could probably have it be challenge proof. That's just my thought, because I was looking at the zoning, so I just wanted to throw that out.
I guess, could you, since you proposed that, could you work with the
Oh.
Assistant Corporation Counsel to just kind of draft something for maybe mid-May?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Does that work for everybody?
It's good. I yield.
I promised Lauren we'd be out by 7, so.
I yield. Thank you.
Thanks for letting me come down.
Thank
Your
you.
birthday gift.
Is today your birthday? Happy birthday.
So I make a motion to table.
Motion and table was made by Councilor Reposo,
Second.
second by Councilor Liberty. All those in favor?
I
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
I
Motion
just want to make
carries.
sure that he understands that he heard what we're doing.
John, you're all set, right? You understood? Yep. Perfect. Thank you. If you need anything, just give me a call. All right.
thank you, officer. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I used to give Pam's number out, now I give yours, so they'll be calling you.
Yeah. That's why he doesn't get any calls.
Item number 8 is a communication from Kevin Aguirre regarding school committee member compensation referred to the committee on January 24th, 23. I'll invite school committee man Kevin Aguirre, which I think he might be coming down as a resident of the city of Fall River as opposed to his official duties. That being said, this was referred to the school committee. Action was taken by the school committee with no action. So the way the city charter reads now, and I do have it, it's the city council's jurisdiction to increase stipends, and there's 2 different locations. There's one under they essentially read the same, but under the school committee, within 18 months of our term, if we increase compensation, then it would essentially take effect at the next election. So that would give us until July, if my math's right, or June, to get something voted on if we're looking to get this effective for the next group that's coming in for the school committee. That being said, before I turn it over to Mr. Aggie, I did provide a quick sheet in part of some of the conversations that I had. So you got the spreadsheet in front of you. Part of the conversations that I had with Mr. Aggie was really trying to figure out how long ago it was that the school committee actually got a cost of living adjustment. So the city council had always got their consumer price index increases. So Mr. Aguirre was kind enough to get that information. So the last increase was in 2001. So I essentially went back to some research on what the CPI was historically. And I don't know if this is the correct CPI, but this is the national average. I think we might use Northeast. So I don't have the Northeast numbers, but this kind of gives us a flavor, or at least a starting point. So if we go back to 2002, and I stopped it in 2009, because in 2010, Council Pelletier made a motion to freeze the cost of living adjustments on all elected officials, including the mayor, in 2010. So if you go back to 2002, $7,197, that's what school committee members received. And actually, I'm off because I probably should have gotten a 2002 number and I didn't. So I'm slightly off because you should have had an increase in 2002. But I just took the CIP, so it's a 2.3% in 2003, 2.7% in 2004, 3.4% in 2005, 3.2% in 2006, 2.9% in 2007, 3.8% in 2008, and then 0% in 2009, which kind of ties out with the recession and the 9C cuts that took place. If we follow that, their salary should be $8,618. So from my standpoint, I think they should be made whole since the city council received the cost of living adjustment in those years. So from my standpoint, the discussion really should be at the $16,091 and the $8,618. Committee man Aguirre did also give me some additional information that he wanted to include, so I included that for the members of the committee. So minimum wage back in 2002 was $6.75. Minimum wage currently is $15. And then he can speak to, educator pay raises moving forward. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Agia.
Thank you very much.
Can you state your name and address for the record since you're coming in as a
Kevin
citizen?
Agia, 2 Crestwood Street, Fall River, Mass. So thank you to the honorable members of this subcommittee for hearing this ordinance suggestion. As the chair had mentioned, I did send this letter, me personally, as a city resident, not as a member of the school committee. So at one of the meetings, it was looked upon, frowned upon, I guess, by some councilors that I didn't contact the other members of the committee. I felt at the time that being the longest standing member and having a historical perspective on this, I chose to do this on my own. I mentioned this in public meetings. I mentioned it at my fundraisers because I've been advocating over the years, both in the school committee, city council, serving on boards, that we need the most qualified people to run and to do the work that's needed and to take it seriously. So that's why I wrote the letter. I've researched at the time, I was looking at ordinances and different things from other communities. One of them was in Bristol Warren. In the Bristol Warren charter or whatever, in the ordinances, it states right what I put in the letter. School committee members will receive compensation for performance of their duties equal to the compensation of town or city councilors, basically. So the model that I used was based on something that I saw from another community. When I started to look at this, I didn't even realize it was that long. I know that I feel strongly that we should be compensated in similar fashions. I respect the work that the council does, but I would hope that the council respects the work that the school committee does. Although we're different bodies and we have different duties and responsibilities, we all work very hard as part-time elected officials. So I think the compensation should be the same, in my opinion. As the chair said, we haven't received any compensation increase on the school committee since 2002. That's 20 years. And I, for one, as other members of the committee, and just like the council does, you took a vote just today to give compensation increase to the water department folks that I think deserve to get a raise. We haven't received any compensation increase in 20 years, and that's unheard of. In addition to that, I'm not sure when the charter was, in 2015 or 18, whatever the charter was done, the charter also took away the opportunity for benefits, health benefits, to come to any elected official, further stripping away something that might be beneficial to someone that's going to dedicate their time, sacrifices from their family to serve the community. So we've actually been stripping away things, whereas I think we should be increasing the compensation and desire to get people to serve on the school committee, city council, or the city boards or anything. I think it's high time that we really take a hard look at this. When we look at the minimum wage that the chair talked about, at $6.75 in 2002, if you do the numbers and just start to do some division of the amount of salary based on the minimum wage, that would mean we would work 1,066 hours per year, divided by 52 is around 20 hours a week. So in 2002, the school committee was getting minimum wage for 20 hours a week. Subsequent to that, if we did what it is now, with the $15 at that rate, we would only be working 9 hours a week for the $15 an hour. If you further take that number of the city council number of the 16,091 divided by minimum wage, it comes back out to around 20 hours per week. So everybody has to get minimum wage accordingly. That's the law now. When you look at the school committee, this money would not affect the city budget in any way because the amount of money that's put in the budget is from the schools only. So it will have zero cost impact on the city, as well as what the chairman talked about being the next term. So it's not anybody giving a raise to somebody that's currently working. It would start at the next election. So anybody out there that would want to run would know before they take their papers out, this is what the salary is going to be and the compensation is going to be. Some of the other things that I had heard at the council, I'm just going to hit a couple of those, and I know we're trying to be out here by 7 according to the chairman, and I don't want to offend.
No, you got as much time as you want. Just remember it's Lauren's birthday tomorrow.
Okay, I want to make sure Lauren gets home for her birthday. So we had talked about some of the compensation and the raises, like it's a big number. When you look at it, that it's I had made the statement that we were paid 45% of the council. When I look at the school budget, which I look at very thoroughly, we have many people that have gotten more than a 2% raise or whatever the union is. So it's more about the need and the actual facts versus, oh, we can't give a raise of anything substantial. We've given raises up more than $9,000 to individuals. We've given one season of coaches. There's 3 seasons at the high school, a $4,500 raise each season. So if you coach 3 sports at that rate, you'd be getting around $10,000 to $12,000 additional on top of it. So it's not unheard of, just so you know about the school budgets. We have one employee that does get the raise based on the CPI, and that came out to a $6,000 raise for this particular employee. So all I'm asking for is that you consider this, forward it to the full council. It's going to be cost neutral, and I think it's going to increase the opportunities for us to recruit people to run or compensate those that are serving and dedicated to at least get paid minimum wage. It's not, I don't think it's too much to ask, and I think it's just the right thing to do. I would also say that it should look at what you do in the future. So the legislature or us or whoever, it's a very difficult vote when you say, well, we're going to give a raise. And I think that's what happened in 2010, is there was some budget cuts in 2009. Since then, we haven't had those budget cuts, but it's never come back up. It's a very difficult decision sometimes to put yourself out there and say, we're going to give the proper compensation. But it's the right thing to do, in my opinion, that we authorize some pay, as well as you. I think the chairman just said it. The ordinance says that the mayor doesn't get a raise. The mayor deserves to get a raise like everybody else as well, in my opinion. No matter who the mayor is, it should get listed towards either the CPI index or whatever it is. We give a raise to the superintendent. Every person that I vote on in that school committee, I've never once, I don't think in my entire last 10 years, given 0% for 20 years to anybody. So everyone's getting fairly compensated based on what they're doing. And I use the minimum wage because I think that's an easy one to kind of figure. And I just ask for your consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions, as an individual. If we need to get more info, I'm happy to work with you to get that as well.
So before I recognize Councilor Lipity, Jesus,
Hard time with that.
I know, sorry. One thing I did want to say was that I think, number one, I support an equal salary or compensation from the city council to the school committee. I know some people might not see it that way, but I think when you start looking at the school committee and looking at their responsibility, it's significantly different. So we're legislative in nature, so we pass ordinances, we approve appropriations. They are almost the executive branch of the school committee. They're dealing with the hiring and firing of a superintendent. They're dealing with grievances. They're dealing with collective bargaining items and other contractual agreements across the board. So there are times when I was on the school committee, it wasn't unheard of going into negotiations, especially with the teachers union, being there until 3 o'clock in the morning, several days a week, and then leaving there and obviously going to work. So on the legislative side, we don't negotiate, right? We look at the contracts after they were negotiated, and we provide an appropriation for it. Mr. Aguiar's point is well taken, that we're at minimum net school spending, right? So we're barely getting there, right? So there's no additional impact, at least on the city side. That would be on the school committee to obviously budget that salary increase or that compensation increase for the school committee. So I'm fully in support of making it equal for city council and the school committee. To suggest that school committee members are doing anything less important, I would argue that they're probably doing more important work than what we're doing on the legislative body. It does impact education and our students and the future of our city. So with that, I'll turn it over to Councilor Liberty.
Thank you. So I agree with everything you said. And historically, when this came before not the school committee increase, but just unfreezing the salaries when former Councilor Steve Camara was on. And it would have passed, except he wanted the increase to go all the way back. Do you remember that? Yes, and then it died because that was too much. We couldn't agree to that. I think they should be unfrozen. Everybody else has been unfrozen since then, and I'm not saying we should get, an enormous increase, but I did watch your meeting and I appreciate all of the school committee members. You know, they gave their thoughtful opinions on it. That, and most of them and most of the council as well gave their opinion on it. And what I heard was, you know, oh, I didn't do this for the money. I don't need the salary. Well, that's great. We ran for office knowing what it was. But I heard, you know, you have to be able to not need the salary to run for office, and that's not fair. I mean, how many of our families are low income in the school department?
70-something%.
So we've just greatly limited the pool of people that can run for office if you know, what if somebody needs childcare, or they work an opposite shift of their spouse, and or they already work a second job and they would have to give up that job to, you know, but they can make more money at the second job. I would agree. I think the work you do is equally as important. I guess I would also want to go back to unfreezing all of the positions. I mean, it's been frozen since 2010. The other thing that bothered me is the headline of Kevin Aguirre wants 100% increase. Well, when you make $6,000, 100% increase is $6,000. You just said we give coaches, and not taking away anything that they do, but $4,000, right, for a season. So, I mean, I think what we have severely limits the, you know, the pool of people that have the ability to run for office. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort if you prepare for a meeting. There's an awful lot of aggravation that comes with it. It's, you know, it's part of the job. I think we all do it for the right reasons, but we should also be compensated as such. With that, I yield.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councilor Reposo.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing I have to say is, and this is a rhetorical statement, the fact that we requested some sort of communication from the school committee about this, and we were told to watch a video, which I think is silliness. I think we requested some sort of correspondence to say, this is where the school committee stands on the issue. And I got a YouTube link, which I think is just blows my mind. But that's here nor there at this point. I think the committee some of them made their points clear of where they stand. I think there are some points about looking at the entire picture, boards and all that. But I think right now we're focusing on this and this only. I know the school committee salaries are paid through the school department budget. But my question to the chair is that count toward net school spending at all?
Yeah, it is, right?
It is.
It's currently
Yeah.
the 7,100 times 6, so whatever that comes out to, 45,000 is counted towards net school
Net school
spending.
spending. Okay. That's all I have. I yield.
So actually makes us like an employee. When you look at the budget, you would almost look at it like as if we're an employee, like everyone else. The problem is that when it's convenient, we took away the benefits of being an employee. And I'm just trying to get that back to be saying what it is.
Understood.
Any further discussion?
So this is just on as communication. What kind of action can we take?
I'd make a recommendation. Submit something back to the full council.
To update the ordinance?
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
What exactly is it?
I think that it should be the same. And I also think that the salary should be unfrozen.
All right, so the motion that's made by Councilor Willoughby is to bring the school committee stipend up to the city council stipend of $16,091 and to unfreeze the cost of living adjustment and tie it to a consumer price index moving forward,
Mr.
which
Chair,
would include,
may I
which
make
would
a
include the mayor.
recommendation? Can you bifurcate those? Because I think they're two different issues,
Yeah,
and I
we
wouldn't
can.
want one to lose on the other. So I agree with what you're saying, but I think it should be two, if I may, to say we do the one that we would get the same day, and the second one to say that we'd lift the cap. So that's two different debates.
So you got the first motion is to make the school committee stipend equal to the city council stipend of $16,091. Motion was made. Is there a second?
Can I ask a point of clarification?
Yep.
So this goes forward to full council for debate, or is it going to come back in the form of a proposed ordinance? how do we proceed with this?
Well, I think it would probably be a debate and then, I don't know, that'd be a good question. I think, might have to come back. To ordinance, yeah.
Okay. All right. With that case, I'll second the motion.
So the motion was made and seconded. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Motion carries unanimously. Second motion.
To unfreeze all of the elected salaries.
So the motion was to unfreeze the cost of living adjustment for all school committee, city council, and the mayor, and tie it to a consumer price index. That motion was made. Is there a second?
Point of clarification, if I may. And again, you would know this better than I would. When it was frozen, did that just apply to mayor, city council, school committee? Did that not apply to anything else?
No, just those three.
Okay. I guess my only concern, devil's advocate here, is if we go forward with unfreezing it and it changes, are we going to understand the budgetary impact of what that's going to be?
So it's going to be tied to the consumer price index. So every year we would get that. And we would,
Not retroactive. I don't want it to be retroactive.
no.
Okay.
Yeah, just
So we'll
moving
stay the
forward.
same.
So it'll only be the CIP that will drive.
Yeah, so this, if that would voted on, I would say that this, the CIP would be for FY24.
Okay. Because
In the schools, we actually do the following year even. So if this was to take effect in January of 24,
Mhm.
in June or whatever the time is that the CPI comes out, then our people get it for July 1 of the next fiscal year. So it's not like impacting you in the moment,
Of
it's
24.
impacting you the next year.
Okay. And again, the same process would apply. It would have to go to committee. It'll probably come back down for
Yep.
an ordinance and then again.
Mhm.
Okay. That I'll yield and I'll second the motion as well.
Motion was made and seconded. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, Mayor, I want to just take the opportunity to thank you. And also, as I was listening to people talking about this, I did hear, as we all know, about the boards and commissions. And I think that that was something that I did speak to the mayor about relative to, we have to look at the big picture as well. So I would just throw that on, not for this, but in the future, because we do have a lot of boards and commissions that some get paid, some that don't. So if we're going to do something logically well thought out in a methodical way for, like, I think you should look at all of them. We have too many boards, in my
Just a
opinion.
point of clarification, though, what I heard the mayor say at the meeting was he was going to put a committee together to do that.
Yeah, I heard a lot of different things from him, but in my personal conversation with him was that he wasn't necessarily, he just got nervous, I think, right away about, oh, it's a big raise. But I think when we look at the facts, it's different. My personal conversation with him was that my argument to him was, I think everything needs to be looked at, Mr. Mayor, and that it would include all of your boards, all of your commissions, because I sit home and watch and there's no quorum for a meeting. How is there no quorum for a meeting when you don't have the either qualified people or you're paying people? Like this, so all I'm asking you for is just as a citizen to throw that on the table as well, so that we, like in this case, we didn't react. I didn't react to the Herald News trying to make an issue of it. I did it very much. I kept quiet. I came to the proper channels to do it in the proper way. All I'm asking you for is if you do that with the boards and commissions in a thoughtful way, I think you'll come to a good resolution.
Yeah, Council Pereira had submitted a resolution that we review all and it's in this committee, review all the boards. So in that, we can have the same discussion about salaries. So.
Thank you all very much. Have a great night.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
sorry for being 5 minutes late, Lauren, but it's really the chairman's fault. Thank you. I yield.
All right. Seeing no further business. Oh, I will say just for the record, so it will take a 2/3 vote to move that. So we would need 6 votes on that. So that's per the chair.
To move both.
I don't know, not the CPI, but the compensation.
Mhm.
So we would probably just need legal counsel opinion on the CPI. So seeing no other further business before us, is there a motion to adjourn?
Can I ask?
Oh, go ahead. Yes.
Sorry, Lauren. So this conversation, as far as the two things that were just stated, will probably appear, hopefully the earliest, at a meeting in April. Okay. So that's April 11th.
Track yourself.
Of course. I You know I like to do my homework, Counselor. Come on. I yield. Motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned was made. Is there a second? So all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Committee on Ordinance and Legislation is now adjourned. Thank you.